Today we're talking the Lazy Cook's way to comfort food with my Lazy Cook's biscuits. You may know them as either butter swim biscuits or butter dip biscuits, but I like to call them the Lazy Cook's biscuits because they're so easy to make. You will love how easily you can get some delicious biscuits made with this recipe. Now, they're not going to be like the kind your grandma made. They don't require you to use a pastry cutter. They don't require you to make rounds. That's what's so wonderful about them. You're going to bake them in either an 8-inch or a 9-inch square pan, and they're going to come out in squares. You'll get all the flavor of a biscuit without the bother. The ingredients we're going to use to make these biscuits are simple and readily accessible. You're going to love the fact that you probably have all the ingredients in your pantry already. We're starting with 1 stick of unsalted butter in a square, either 8-inch or 9-inch square ceramic or glass pan. And you want to choose ceramic or glass because we're cooking in a hot oven today, 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and we don't want the butter that's in this pan to brown. We want to have nice, golden, delicious biscuits. We're also using 2½ cups of all-purpose flour that I carefully measured, 1½ tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1½ teaspoons of salt, and 1 3/4 cups of either buttermilk or a buttermilk substitute. Today, I'm using a buttermilk substitute, and to make it, I took 2 cups of whole milk, I removed 2 tablespoons of that milk, and I replaced the 2 tablespoons with lemon juice, fresh lemon juice, but you could in fact use bottled lemon juice. I set it aside, and now I have very, very thick buttermilk substitute. No need for me to run to the grocery store today. This is an easy recipe. I'm not running to the grocery store for an easy recipe. To get started, I have my baking dish with my 1 stick of butter in my microwave melting. I want nice hot butter in the bottom of the pan. The oven is preheating to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to mix together all of my ingredients. So to the 2½ cups of flour, I'm going to add my 1½ tablespoons of sugar, my 1½ teaspoons of salt, my 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and I'm going to whisk them together so that they're well combined. Just a whisk, 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 whisk. Now to the dry mixture, I'm going to add my 1 3/4 cups of either buttermilk or buttermilk substitute all at once. And in this stage of the making of these biscuits, you just want to combine your wet and dry ingredients until they come together. If you overmix, you'll have tough, gooey biscuits. Make sure you get it all. Everything from the bottom. Once all the dry bits have been incorporated into the batter, retrieve the baking dish from the microwave. And you can see that the butter has melted in the pan. I'm just going to take a little piece of paper towel and bring the butter up the sides of the pan, just to grease the pan. And then I am placing the dough into the pan. And I'm going to spread this batter evenly in the pan. Doesn't matter if some of the butter comes up the sides. It's going to do that while it bakes. Take your time to spread it out evenly. And then I like to take a butter knife, and I'm going to cut these biscuits into shape. So I'm going to do a 3x3 cut. Just run your knife through the batter. And they're ready to go into the 450 degrees preheated oven for approximately 20 minutes till they're golden brown and it's all bubbly around the sides. Don't forget to set your timer. Your biscuits will come out of the oven browned on the edges and golden on the top. They're so ready for you to dig right into, but you're going to want to cool them on the counter for a little bit before you serve them. After you've let your biscuits cool a bit, you want to take a knife and score where you previously scored the batter when you put it in, before you put it into the oven. Then let's see how they came out. Falling apart deliciousness. It's so buttery. Now they're not flaky like a normal biscuit would be, but they have that biscuit flavor. And the way that I love to serve these is with soupy things like a delicious soup or stew, chili. And I like to break off a little piece and then dunk it into my meal, whatever that is. So good. Let's talk about some frequently asked questions that you might have about this recipe. One of the questions that you might have is regarding making the substitute for the buttermilk. And you might wonder if you have to use whole milk, or can you use skim milk, 1%, 2%, what can you use? Half and half? Quite frankly, you can use just about any of those things. You should make the substitute and try it with different types of milk to see which you prefer. I actually like to use the whole milk. I think it gives me a thicker consistency and a better end result when I'm using it in baked goods. You might also ask, what if you don't have lemon juice? I did happen to have a lemon on hand, but you might not. And remember, this is supposed to be an easy recipe where you don't need to take a run to the grocery store. Well, you can use vinegar in place of the lemon juice in the buttermilk substitute. Easy peasy. Do you have to use all-purpose flour? You can use self-rising flour in place of all-purpose flour if that's what you have. But one of the things you want to do is omit the baking powder in the recipe as well as the salt, because those are added to self-rising flour. The texture might be a little different, but use what you have. One of the other things that I'd like to encourage you to do is to experiment with the recipe. This is a plain biscuit recipe, but you might like to jazz it up. Try folding in some shredded cheddar cheese or some Parmesan cheese. So good. How about if you put in some fresh chopped rosemary or a little bit of thyme, or maybe even just a spoonful of some Italian seasoning? That would make it delicious as well. Think of how you would like it and experiment. It'll be just oh so good.